Strange things are happening around you all the time, but what happens when the most unbelievable moments end up being caught on camera? From the worst tsunamis the world has ever seen to the most daring one-man rescues that one could imagine, here are 25 of the most incredible moments that were caught on security camera. Beginning with a young man who walked into a food place. Nobody noticed him at first, but little did they know he was about to pull off something that would leave everyone speechless. It was clear he had something up his sleeves and waiting for the right moment to make his move. He then reaches into his pocket and places something on the table, and then goes back into his pockets again. Meanwhile, everyone in the place was clueless, just enjoying their meal, when suddenly it was as though he was wrestling with heavy emotions. Was he going to do something he would regret? He then lit up the table, and one woman caught on quickly. She nudged her partner, and before you knew it, the whole place became chaotic. It turns out the guy was just celebrating something, perhaps his birthday, but he had felt all alone, and that's when the couple stepped in to celebrate with him, and it became a beautiful moment of human connection there in the middle of a crowded restaurant. Wheat Ridge, Colorado has a population of about 32,000, but one incident unfolds in September of 2020 where a celebratory candle led to a massive fire at a residence during a grandfather's 88th birthday party. The festivities took on a dangerous turn as the elderly birthday man, who had been struggling with dementia, placed a lit candle too close to the drapes without thinking. Naturally, they caught on fire, but thanks to the quick actions of the family, the fire was quickly put out, and a massive disaster was avoided. The whole time the chaotic event is taking place, Grandpa is blissfully unaware of the danger that's surrounding him, and continues to enjoy his birthday lunch, shielded from the commotion, all thanks to his dementia. A crazy rainstorm hit China back in 2013, and things got pretty intense as almost 1 million people got caught up in a landslide and flash floods. Simultaneously, something even more insane took place that was caught on camera from start to finish. 4 people had been driving along a mountain road, and everything was fine until a massive mudslide swallowed their entire car. The camera barely kept up with the chaos, with dust flying everywhere as the car was dragged towards the cliff. Anyone would think that the people in the car were gone forever, but miraculously 2 men emerge, followed by a third who was a bit shaken up but still alive. They were all in total disbelief, and after making sure there was no more danger, they went back to rescue their 4th friend. In the end, all 4 of them made it out in one piece, but as for their car, one could only hope they had solid insurance. In China, in November of 2021, things take a turn for the worse. It was snowing quite hard with no end in sight, and the streets became a slushy mess. 2 men were standing outside of an office building when suddenly a massive block of ice comes crashing down. They quickly move away because who knows when the next one may drop. In reality, these falling icicles are quite dangerous. They may not be sharp enough to pierce your skin, but they could definitely leave a mark, bruises, broken bones, and more. According to the CDC, there are over 1 million ice-related injuries in the United States every year, and falling icicles play a big part in that. So the next time you're walking under a snowy roof, keep your head up and watch out for the icy missiles, because you never know when one might come crashing down. In July of 2015, residents in Escondido, California found themselves in the middle of a bizarre spectacle that involved a routine tree removal operation gone awry. Bob's Crane Service was going down upon the main transit hub to remove an aging eucalyptus tree, but unforeseen complications quickly took place. As the crane hoisted the towering tree, people who were watching braced for the expected descent, only to witness a startling deviation from the anticipated trajectory. The massive tree, instead of descending harmlessly to the ground, careened dangerously toward unsuspecting bystanders, sending them scrambling for cover in a bid to evade the impending disaster. Miraculously, no one was injured. Gujarat is the 5th largest state in India, boasting the longest coastline in the country, and has 40% of the country's ocean cargo passing through its ports, both public and private. However, in an incident August 28th of 2019, it left the entire area in shock. In the footage, we see a truck rolling in, and it's nothing out of the ordinary, but as the driver hits the ramp and tries to make a turn, that's when things go haywire. It almost topples over and then suddenly veered off screen. Everyone's attention was snapped to the commotion, and the next thing you know, footage reveals the truck plunging straight into the water. Chaos ensued as everyone rushed to see if they could lend a hand, and in the end they had blamed it on brake failure, not tight shipping schedules. Fortunately, the driver and passenger escaped with minor injuries, but their cargo is probably resting at the bottom of the Arabian Sea. It was a seemingly ordinary day in February of 2016 when a routine commute turned into a brush with fate for two unsuspecting motorists in China. CCTV footage captured the moment when a runaway tire, dislodged from an oncoming truck, careened across lanes of traffic and collided with a nearby van. The driver, caught off guard by the impact, emerged from the vehicle bewildered and disoriented, struggling to comprehend the sequence of events that had just transpired. Despite the surreal nature of everything, the driver escaped unscathed, spared from the potential devastation that was wrought by the tire's trajectory. On May the 15th of 2022, something crazy takes place at a gas station in Saudi Arabia. There was a line of cars and trucks waiting to fill up and everything seemed to be normal, but then out of nowhere, the reserve tank exploded, sending chunks of concrete flying and black smoke billowing out. They said that the explosion was probably caused by high temperatures in the area, but with little news coming out of Saudi Arabia, it's tough to say for sure. Inchi is in central China and has a population of around 780,000 people. It's a prime spot for tourism, with a river, hotels, restaurants, spas, and more. But on December the 27th of 2019, something strange happened. Locals were minding their own business walking along the street when suddenly a loud crash echoes through the air. The footage didn't capture the magnitude of what took place, but when bystanders took out their phones to record, you finally get a sense of it all. When you see an aerial shot, you realize it was caused by a massive sinkhole. And here's the crazy part, nobody was injured, and the driver that was involved was okay, but the road had to be shut down for repairs. They never really figured out what had caused it, but it looks like the ground beneath had just given way after years of wear and tear. On May the 2nd of 2023, a 5.2 magnitude earthquake takes place and it's captured on CCTV camera. While most people were probably sleeping in their beds, those that were awake would experience the worst earthquake of their lives. If you saw those cow and that dog, well, there's no way that you wouldn't worry about them. In the end, despite the chaos, only 10 people suffered injury, and they were all eventually fine. Earthquake experts would declare it to be a level 3 emergency, which is pretty serious, and they sent over 2,000 rescue workers to the scene to set up 34 emergency shelters to help about 11,000 who were affected. In Vietnam comes a crazy story about a drunk man who narrowly escapes getting hit by a train. Imagine being so wasted you don't even realize a train's coming. Well, that's exactly what happened. The man was stumbling around thinking he could beat the train when suddenly he smacked his face on the ground. Luckily, a man on duty at the railroad crossing saw what was happening and successfully pulled the guy off the tracks just in time, moments before the train came through. And just like that, a life was saved. The drunk man never realized how close he was to becoming an internet sensation for all of the wrong reasons. Canada may not be the first place that you think of when you hear the word hurricane, but the truth is they still feel the effects of those powerful storms, just not as intensely as places like Florida or the Caribbean. Take Storm Fiona, for example. In 2022, it hit eastern Canada as a Category 4 hurricane, making quite the mess. Cameras would catch the storm as tsunami-like waves tore beach homes from their foundations, and reports said that Fiona's storm surge wiped out around 100 homes alone. Homes along the coastline of Newfoundland's southwestern tip were sitting ducks for the storm, and the aftermath was devastating. Some were washed out to sea, while others were deemed to be too dangerous to stay in. Now we go to central Serbia, right by the Danube River, where on April the 8th of 2021, something crazy took place. Workers were loading up a barge with minerals and sediment from the riverbed. It's supposed to be someone's job to make sure that the barge doesn't get too heavy. However, that person didn't do their job well that day, and the entire thing snaps. It's a good thing the barge didn't crash into the dock, or it may have well turned into a Titanic-like situation. In the end, the man who jumped between the sinking ship and the pier truly won the Bravery Award. The company that owned the barge and machinery had already had a rough year in 2021, and several of their employees were accused of breaking rules, and this incident was just one more instance of that happening. On July the 4th of 2022, one family in Nebraska had a fireworks show in their front yard. They had an entire car full of explosives, of which were legal, but things got very interesting quickly. A woman basically put her entire family in grave danger because of one small mistake. Fireworks began to go off everywhere, and there was chaos. The video of them gone terribly wrong went viral, and people began to say that it was all staged by Simply Safe for a marketing ploy. But it turns out it was just a regular family sharing the video with their neighbors, and somehow it ended up all over social media. Red Oak, Iowa is a small town of about 5,300 people, and nothing was out of the ordinary until Brendan Burt took a wrong turn onto Prospect Street. As he was driving, he noticed something quite off, a house beginning to catch fire. It was around 2 a.m. on November the 1st of 2012 when Brendan accidentally stumbled upon the disaster. He could have just driven by, but he dialed 911 as he watched the porch go up in flames as 4 people slept inside of the home. Brendan had no idea how many people were inside of the home or how young they were. All he knew was that he needed to do something fast. He saw no other solution in sight and began banging on the windows, hoping that someone inside would hear him, and thankfully they did. Everyone woke up in time to make a run for safety, and thankfully nobody got hurt. The kids had managed to get in touch with their mother, and Brendan stuck around for 3 hours after the blaze to make sure that everyone was okay. Brendan's heroic moment was caught on camera and exists forever as a reminder of the kindness that strangers can sometimes exhibit. In Indonesia in 2018, the capital city of Central Sulawesi was rocked by a devastating earthquake following a tsunami. The numbers were grim, with over 4,000 lives lost and 70,000 homes damaged. It was intense, and it brought down buildings as though they were made out of nothing, trapping people inside in the process. Things took a wild turn when a homeowner had their security camera rolling. The cameras captured the horror as the earthquake unfolds. You can see everything shaking like crazy, cars sliding around, scooters toppling over, and the family clinging to a metal door for dear life. When they thought it couldn't get any worse, a tsunami crashed into their backyard, engulfing everything in its path. The waves were no joke, reaching heights of at least 6 feet and flooding homes up to the second floor. The earthquake measured at 7.5 on the Richter scale and struck from about 43 miles away. It was the deadliest on record of 2018 and the worst that Indonesia had seen since 2006. Vila Velha is a charming coastal resort town in Brazil known for its stunning beaches and luxurious buildings, but in April of 2021, residents of a beachfront building caught wind of something strange. There was a gas-like smell coming from the pool whenever it kicked into high gear, and it was a smart move to hold off on swimming until they figured it out. That decision paid off because later that evening, a crash reverberated through the building. The bottom of the 75-foot pool took a nosedive, flooding the parking lot below and sending everyone into a frenzy. Officials arrived into the scene and evacuated all 270 residents, putting them in nearby hotels. Meanwhile, they ran checks on the building's structural integrity to ensure that it wasn't on the brink of collapse, and in the end, nothing much else was damaged. No cars in the parking lot suffered any damage either. After 5 days, residents were given the green light to return, and it turns out the pool had sprung a leak in 2020, forcing it to shut down for 3 months. To this day, the smell of gas remains a mystery. Shanghai, China is a bustling city of over 30 million people, and you know what comes with that many? Tons of batteries. Every device and gadget needs a battery, and on September 22nd of 2021, an office cleaner was doing their thing, gathering the trash, when they stumbled upon an old battery case. She figured the owner wanted it tossed out, so she placed it by the door and went on about her business, but something kept nagging her, and finally it hit. It was about to blow up. She tried to grab the fire extinguisher, but it was stuck, so she grabbed her purse and ran out of there as though her life depended on it. Her instincts were all telling the truth because the battery went off like fireworks, filling the room with smoke. The once harmless battery had now become a melted mess of plastic and acid, and it turns out that it went through a thermal runaway. High electric currents made it heat up, catch fire, and explode, and in the end, thanks to the sprinklers and quick thinking, it didn't get out of hand. Officer Joel Nitchman and his furry partner Rooney had been absolutely inseparable, and one day in January of 2023, a tornado touched down near Deer Park, Texas. It wasn't a common occurrence, especially for the Houston suburb, but Officer Nitchman was at the situation when he realized that his beloved dog Rooney was still in the car. Without a second thought, he dashed into the storm to save him, and despite the wind and rain trying to knock him off his feet, he was determined to get Rooney to safety. It becomes a nail-biting moment as he opens the car, with trees swaying dangerously close, but he manages to get Rooney out, and they hightailed it back inside. Rooney wasn't thrilled about leaving the car, but his safety was all that mattered at that time. The two have been through it all since 2018, with Officer Nitchman calling Rooney his hip attachment, swearing that he'd always been part of the family, and after a daring rescue like that, who could argue? Spartanburg is the 11th largest city in the state of South Carolina, with almost 39,000 people calling it home, and it got its name from a local gang of Revolutionary War heroes called the Spartan Regiment. On October the 23rd of 2017, chaos struck when an F2 tornado decided to visit Spartanburg. It tore through the heart of the city, wreaking havoc upon homes and businesses alike. Footage from inside a factory shows what it's like when a tornado comes knocking, and it's not pretty. Workers could be seen scrambling for cover as the wind wreaks havoc, tearing down walls and tossing around heavy machinery as though it were child's play. Thankfully, nobody was injured, but the damage was serious and set the factory back about $5.6 million. Christmas Day of 2023 in China, and a delivery driver stands at a traffic light. Suddenly, he catches a whiff of something funky, and the next thing he knows, a guy is yelling at him from the side, telling him that his truck is on fire. When he looks back, he realizes the cargo bed is engulfed in flames, and since he was local, he knew exactly what to do. He called the fire rescue brigade and gave them the heads up as he raced over. He had to get there before the fire reached the cab, and in the end, he made it just in time. 10 minutes later, they had the fire under control. Thankfully, the driver walked away without a scratch, but his truck and his cargo of pine tar were fully burnt up. In mid-February of 2021 in central Java, they were hit with some brutal rainstorms. Floods were everywhere and displaced 60,000 people, but they'd also been dealing with non-stop rain, and the worst was yet to come. A woman would be working at a local pharmacy when the wind suddenly kicked up like crazy, and she dove for cover just in time. It was an extremely close call, and from another angle, you can see her and co-workers barely escaping as the storefront collapsed. Luckily, she had the sense to duck down, but it wasn't only the pharmacy that took a hit. Homes, utilities, and several others were damaged, with power lines also going down, plunging the entire village into darkness. This is a prime example of how quick thinking can sometimes literally save your life. November of 2015, and we see a chef at a local eatery trying to whip up some pig's feet. Things were going fine until he decided to bring out what looked like a homemade blowtorch. Things went south very quickly as the canister catches fire, and instead of calmly handling the situation, he panics. In his fearful state, he throws the canister into the street, and it rolls right under a parked city bus. A man tries to retrieve the canister, getting almost caught on fire in the process, and after a while the bus catches fire and chaos ensues. The chef comes out with a fire extinguisher, but it was too little too late. Thankfully, the fire department saved the day, putting the blaze out before it spread too far. 8 people were on the bus when it decided to go rogue, but some stroke of luck gave everyone the ability to get out before things got worse. The restaurant is at the top of a sloped street, which is why things became so disastrous, but no lives were lost in the end. On August the 19th of 2019, an F2 tornado ripped through the town of Patang, wreaking havoc with its 72-mile-per-hour winds. 160 buildings would be taken down and 19 people injured, along with roofs flying off left and right. One homeowner had the mind to keep their security camera rolling, and in the footage you see chaos unfold as the tornado turns their backyard upside down in a matter of seconds. In September of 2022, Hurricane Fiona ripped through a tiny coastal town in Newfoundland, and things went from bad to terribly wrong. A Category 4 storm comes crashing through, bringing 103 mile-per-hour winds and tsunami-like waves, and CCTV footage managed to capture the entire thing. 2 houses would be torn from their foundations and sent adrift, and the wrath didn't stop there. Over 100 more were basically swallowed by the sea, leaving locals stunned and shaken. They called it a community-changing event and one of the worst storms that they'd ever faced. The rampage cost over $2 billion in damages, making it the strongest hurricane in Canadian history. While security cameras are there for protection and safety, they can sometimes capture moments in life that nobody would otherwise think about recording. But what do you think of these amazing moments? Let us know all about it in the comments down below. Be sure you're subscribed so you never miss another great video like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.